Welcome to Community Culture, Arts and Sports Committee.
It's a big sigh.
Yeah, it's the second of the year, the second committee of the year, and I know that there's work to be done. Councillor Kunzman. Are you happy to do the acknowledgement of country this morning, Councillor?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Today this committee recognises the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet. We support their right to democratic representation and social inclusion. Ipswich City Council acknowledges the ongoing challenges faced by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and this committee supports their inclusion and participation in community, cultural, arts and sports activities.
Thank you, Councillor Kunzman. Does anyone have any declarations of interest on matters on the agenda? Councillor Kunzman.
Thank you, Chair. In accordance with Section 150 EQ of the Local Government Act 2009, I, Councillor Kate Kunzelman, inform the meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest in item 2, titled Ipswich Show Society funding. The nature of the declarable conflict of interest is that I am an ordinary member of the Ipswich Show Society. I invite other councillors to determine if I can continue to participate in the decision process.
I'll open that up for discussion amongst the group.
Chair, if I may ask a question, have you ever been an office bearer of the Ipswich Show Society?
No, I have not. I'm an ordinary member.
How long have you been an ordinary member?
About 2 years.
Okay. Do you participate in the decision making of?
No, I do not. I do not have any advantage whatsoever.
Okay. Chair, may I propose that I move that Councillor Kate Kunzelman participates and votes on item 2, 150th Ipswich Show signature partner proposal, because there's no personal financial benefit to her, and therefore a reasonable person would trust that the final decision is made in the public interest.
I'll second that. And we'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous, noting that Councillor Kunzelman did not vote.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Kunzelman. First up, we have the confirmation of the minutes from the previous committee, and the recommendation here is that those minutes be confirmed. I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. I'll open that for any corrections or discussion, which there is none. I'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous and carried. Moving on to item number 2, the 150th show signature partner proposal. This is a report concerning an opportunity for Council to be the one-off signature partner of the 150th Ipswich show taking place the weekend of the 19th, 20th and 21st of May this year. There is no substantive recommendation in front of us. There is no substantive motion contained within the recommendation in front of us. The recommendation to this committee today is for us to consider that $100,000. So I guess, does anyone have any questions for relevant council officers with regards to previous funding arrangements over the years that we've had with them? I might actually seek clarification on previous funding that we've given to the Ipswich show. Maybe a little bit more colouring as to why this is in front of us today as a proposal rather than being assessed through the normal channels. Thank you, Mr. Poll.
Thank you, Chair, Mayor and Councillors. Ben Poll, General Manager, Community, Cultural and Economic Development.
Mr. Poll, just to the question I alluded to moments ago, this proposal coming to us rather than being assessed through the normal channels, is there a reason for that?
Yes, there is. So standard practice is for the Show Society to submit a major community event sponsorship application. There's a criteria that's applied to that. It's independently assessed on merit. The factors within the criteria of that standard assessment generally relate to things such as economic impact, visitation, attendance, these kind of things, as well as factoring in, I suppose, the operational costs to put an event on. and which of those costs relate to costs that council is willing to offset. And so that's been the process for the Ipswich show, I guess as long as I can remember, as long as council has been sponsoring the event. Generally speaking, those sponsorships come in anywhere between $30,000 and I think last year it was as much as $45,000 for the Ipswich show. This being a 150th year, which let me, I suppose, just take a moment to note, is a significant and extraordinary milestone for the Show Society, but also for our community to have this Ipswich show celebrating its 150th year. The program that the Show Society are delivering this year is significantly different to a standard annual show, and therefore the sponsorship request from the Show Society came in significantly different. When they had initially discussed that they were looking to do something different this year to normal years, we had made the point to them that by them submitting through the standard process, it will only be reviewed using the standard criteria. Our standard criteria, I guess, doesn't really account for things such as these major civic ceremonial milestones, such as it being a 150. Also, when we're reviewing things such as attendance, our criteria relates to previous attendance and doesn't account for forecast or potential future attendance. So by the show saying that this is going to be bigger and better than ever, and we're going to have more people coming, our standard criteria really doesn't allow us to consider what might happen, only what's happened in previous years. So it was only ever going to be assessed probably at around the same amount as what it had been assessed at previous years. So the advice to the Show Society was to then potentially, if they thought this was an extraordinary event and there were significant differences in this year's show to previous years, that maybe they should submit a special proposal to council for consideration, which is what they did. They've submitted a special proposal. It's not a standard sponsorship application. It is a signature partner proposal. It outlines the difference in the actual program that they're delivering and why this is a different event. It also outlines a variety of different deliverables for council. We then, in consultation with the CEO, agreed that the best place for that to be discussed, reviewed and decided upon was in this space amongst committee and council. And so we translated the proposal into this report and have presented it to you here today.
Councillor Doyle, you've got a question?
Thank you, Mr. Poll. In relation to other sponsorship requests that are within the standard process, so and very separately to the Ipswich Show Society, are we generally seeing an increase in the amounts that organisations are applying for to reflect the current economic? Is that a fair comment, or? It
is. Short answer is yes. Whether they be community events or major events or even sporting events, we see a continual increase, I suppose, incremental increase in sponsorship or funding support request amounts. That has everything to do from materials and services, so basic increase in costs, through to them looking to expand their event or expand their program to include new things. Generally speaking, as I say, our assessments though are based on what's the evidence of the past event, and we take it from there. It's not necessarily council's role to underwrite the expansion of event. We make a decision that we want to support these events, we want them to be successful and sustainable, but just because you're growing doesn't mean council's support necessarily grows with you. So yes, incremental increases based on material services, costs and other things. This, however, is, in my opinion, significantly different. This is the Show Society wanting to recognise a particular milestone, and I think that's different to incremental cost increases that we see in other events.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Poll. I was in two minds as to whether we consider this matter before us at committee today and send a recommendation to council, or whether we just assess it as an entire group at council ordinary this month. Do any of my fellow councillors on the committee have an opinion either way?
I would like to have all of the councillors here to make this decision, so I'd refer it to the full council meeting.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Ireland. I think, given the size of the figure, I think it's...
And the significance of it. Yep. Okay. Sounds good. We'll take that motion. We'll form a motion out of Councillor Ireland's comments earlier. Are you happy to move that we consider this matter at council ordinary this month?
I'll second.
And so that you're happy to move that, Councillor Ireland? Yep. And Councillor Kunzelman seconded that one. Yep. Okay, we'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous and carried. Got some policy tidying up coming up for the rest of the agenda. Item number 3 specifically refers to the revised councillor discretionary funds policy. The recommendation here is that the policy in attachment 3 be adopted. Did anyone need to speak to a relevant council officer? No. Okay. Is there any discussion about those minor changes made within the policy? No.
Has it been moved and seconded?
Pardon?
Has it been moved and seconded?
Not yet, no. So we'll take that recommendation and move that. Thank you, Councillor Doyle, for seconding. And we'll take that to the vote then.
May I have discussion now that's been moved and seconded?
You can, yeah.
Thank you. I just note that obviously in reading through the policy, it's again tidying up, updating with different corporate policies and I think a few typos. So yeah, we'll be supporting this.
Thank you for your comments, Mayor. I'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. Similarly here, item number 4 is the revised community funding and support policy. The recommendation here is that the policy detailed in attachment 3 be adopted. I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Any discussion? Mayor?
Again, Chair, just support this. It's tidying up and updating it with the latest corporate documents.
We'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. And lastly, for committee this morning, we have the revised civic and ceremonial events policy. This report is seeking the Governance and Transparency Committee approval to update the existing civic and ceremonial events policy managed by the Marketing and Promotions branch within the Community Culture Economic Development Department. The recommendation here is that the updated policy titled Civic and Ceremonial Events Policy as detailed in attachment 3 be adopted. I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jonick. I'll open that up for any discussion. Councillor Kunzelman.
Just that it's the wrong committee. In that this is a report seeking governance and transparency committee report approval. Sorry.
The motion in front of us is that we adopt as per attachment 3, and yet there are clarifications within the policy and updates.
So I think Councillor Kunzelman's, wouldn't it sit in this committee?
Sorry.
For clarification, Chair, just under the executive summary,
Yeah.
it just states that the report is that,
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you.
Sorry. Well, it's just significant that it's moved to this
Yes.
committee.
yeah.
So just the wording's wrong. That's all.
That is correct. The executive summary says this report is seeking the Governance and Transparency Committee approval. It should have CCAS.
CCAS.
That's right.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
So I thought you were suggesting it moves to another committee. So.
No.
I think Councillor Madson's got enough on his plate without having to oversee this policy. We'll take that one with the mic on.
Sorry, Chair, apologies for the errors.
That's okay. Thank you, CEO, for your apology.
Madam Chair, in discussion, the addition to this policy is to include the Korean Veterans Day. I know that the RSLs don't regularly, they usually do it on the I guess the zero, on the 40th, 50th and 60th sort of anniversaries. The Korean War is often known as the Forgotten War. So I think it's good that we've put this in, and I just want to acknowledge Mr. Matt Rennie, who is a Korean War veteran and member of the Ipswich sub-branch, RSL sub-branch, who has asked for this to be included there.
Thanks, Mayor. And I just want to add my thanks to the Civic and Ceremonials Committee that get together to discuss these issues so that we have awareness of those important events that are happening out there within our community, so that we're best placed as a council to support those events. So we always have really constructive meetings about upcoming events. Last meeting we met was heavily focused on the success of our Anzac Day celebrations coming up, and that was a really good session to nut out the logistics of how we're actually managing that as an organisation as well. So that work continues. This policy will be embedded in those discussions and continue.
If I may, Chair, one of those events is Ipswich Day, and obviously that happened last week. And I guess at the next one, I would like to have another discussion about what recognising and celebrating the proclamation of municipality of Ipswich means to the organisation, so we can commemorate that. Thank you.
Noted. Thank you. With no further discussion, we'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. Which brings us to the conclusion of committee this morning at 11:28 a.m. The next committee will start at 11:38 a.m.